Greetings and salutations. Let's let the room catch up before we get going here. Alrighty, there we go. All right, boys and girls, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Automotive Podcast for you don't have to build model cars, but it sure does help. We're on episode 37. We have the full crew tonight, and then down here in the Hollywood Square, you'll see we have Joel from Iceman Collections.
Hey, everyone.
Joining us this evening for fun and frivolity. We're going to discuss, all things modeling. And then, of course, Joel is going to, lead us on a little journey down the modeling aftermarket and 3D printing and all the other things that he specializes in. And it's been another 2 weeks since we've spoken. We're on a group chat. But for the purposes of this, it's been 2 weeks. Mr. Chester, what's been going on with you?
I'm still working on that McLaren Spider. I don't know if I showed you guys this, but it's a fully 3D printed project. I showcased it on my YouTube channel, so almost done.
That is very, very green.
It is very, very green.
Definitely green.
What?
It's already painted?
Yeah, I painted it.
Okay.
It's 2024 McLaren 750S Spider.
Wow. Is that a factory color or?
Close. They have a Python green, which is more a yellow green, but I just kind of like this. It's a pearl, so.
Okay. It almost looks fluorescent.
Yeah, it's bright. It's bright.
Nice.
So yeah, almost finished with it.
Cool. Exciting.
I'm still interested to see if the chassis and everything out of the Revell kit, once it meanders its way out, will end up just the body fitting over top of it. That's all I care about. I don't need it to assemble like a model. I just would, for the purposes of having the glass and headlight lenses and things like that.
Yeah, the designer of this kit, Lucas, he knocked it out of the park. He did a coupe and a convertible, and it's really, really nice fitting kit. And I'm happy to be working with him.
Are you building that stock or is it doing anything?
Yeah, just stock. Yeah. He's working on a Bugatti Chiron Pure Sport now. So cool. That'll be done in about a month.
Nice.
Let's say that I don't need. That I already have one of that here in this pile of alpha models.
Are you going to have that done for the Buckeye Classic contest?
I hope to. I don't know if I'll be displaying anything at the show since I'm vending, but maybe.
Cool.
Well, you can't do both. Is that a chew gum and walk at the same time problem or what?
Really, all I got to do is put the models down on the table.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hey. What's the point, though? If I can't go out and talk to everybody, and what's the point?
Oh, yeah, but we all want to see your work and
enjoy. You put it on the table. You stick your little business cards and stickers out by them, and then what you really should have done, it's too late now, is get like a table runner that has like scale model experiment on it, and then everybody would have been like, "Oh, that guy's selling kits over there. That's the guy who has that neon green McLaren." Oh, okay. Sean, I know what you've been doing because we see the pictures of it from time to time. But what's been going on down there with the 4-wheel drive Charger of Doom?
Oh, it is close to being ready to display. It's very close. I'm down to. In fact, I think I have to glue 2 wheels on it, and it'll be done.
Oh wow!
It's done. So yeah, it'll be ready for display at on the table at the Buckeye Classic. And I've actually started working on my next project already. So
I was going to say you got 2 weeks.
Well, the next project won't be ready for Buckeye, but I'm doing a sort of a buddy build with I don't know if you remember J Dog from Instagram. We had on a few back earlier in the year. He offered to do a buddy build on the 3D printed Jeep Cherokee pickup from Andre Brizzarodny.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'm using some parts that I got from Joel the other day.
Cool,
nice.
So yeah, we're gonna team up on a build. He's building one. I'm going to build my version of the same kit, and hopefully I'll have that ready for in and out.
Slammed, right?
No, it's not going to be slammed, but it's going to be. It's not going to be stock either. That's for sure.
James,
To say I'm entirely curious because this would be like 2-3 sort of 4-wheel drive off-road projects in a row. So what are we going to do with this Jeep? Because like the Charge is obviously off-road, the Travel All was off-road.
very off-road.
I say technically I think the project before that is the box art for the Mobius F250 off-road. So we need to get Sean to build something that's
got a theme
a normal person could get into without a step ladder.
Yeah, no, I've been on a truck kick, so I think you may see another one. Yeah,
I still say Tester's Fault was the name for that Charger, since this whole fiasco got started with that trophy truck chassis. For me, well, for folks that are on Facebook who are friends with me, and I know there's a bunch of people that in the chat that they know Sunday was my last day at FedEx, so we're done with that page of the book, and we're on to a new job that I started today. That is going to hopefully free me up some time to actually accomplish something. That would be cool. That would be nice. For the last 5 years of working, nights and every weekend, it really has given me a lot of time to do anything else. I told these guys in the chat when I was on my way home this morning, or this evening rather, morning. See, I'm not used to working daytime. I don't know what that orb in the sky is or anything like that. It's much, much brighter than that moon that I'm used to. But, the commute that I had before was an hour in and like sometimes 2 hours back home in the morning because that's rush hour coming home. And this is 15 minutes. And so
nice.
I get 8.5 hours of my life back every week just simply by not driving to FedEx anymore. So that's going to be fun. The two things that I have that I plan to get going here shortly, because I actually made sure I actually have the paint of this, is I've been looped into building an airplane, which is a long story, but I'm building this 1/48 scale Tamiya Corsair. I have Mr. Tester, again, it's his fault, right? He's not to blame for this particular plane, but he just proved the other day that a car modeler can, in fact, build an airplane. Push comes to shove, so
you don't have to weather it. It can just be painted.
Yeah, I was gonna say I still need to go get a can of the blue because I don't have really anything in bottles that approximates that color, and it's TS8, or AS8, the aircraft color stuff that Tamiya uses. So we're gonna hose that on with a spray can. I ain't bothering decanting that because it's just to get it done. I did get window masks for it because that old Tamiya kit doesn't come with window masks, and I got one of those 3D cockpit sets for it. From Quinta. So it's got the all the buttons that are raised, which means that I have to chisel all the raised detail out of the entire interior. So that'll be fun. And then I have, I'll go ahead and commit to this too, because this is my NNL East project. You may recall the theme this year is 1963, right? And so what is everybody going to build? Everybody's going to build
Chevelle
trucks.
Or Impala.
Impalas and Chevelles.
Impala, Corvettes, and the AMT Ford trucks. So I say, there is a 1963 Japanese Grand Prix Subaru 360. So this is basically the Japanese equivalent of Volkswagen Beetle. You read the history on it, literally is the people's car of Japan. And so that's going to be a project. Everything for that already. And it's only it's an old Hosokawa kit from the 90s, so it's only like 60 pieces. So long as I can actually get that painted in I have 2 months. We're at the beginning of March. It needs to be done by the end of April. So that is
8 hours per week.
I say, got it. If I could just take like 2 hours of that 8 hours, that'll get me where I need to be pretty much.
Yeah. If you guys keep building these wing things, we're gonna have to rename the podcast.
Very amusingly, I talked to our good friend Frank of the Long Island Persuasion, and this is about a month ago, and it was right after James finished that P-51, and I said something along the lines of he's going to guilt trip us all into building airplanes doing this because he also, for people who don't know, has a gigantic Tamiya Corsair that he picked up in Cleveland at the end of last year. So he's got a 132nd scale one. And he said, well, you could prove that car guys build planes. I said, plane guys building cars, that's already the podcast right now. We don't need to don't even need to change names. It's just be plane guys with cars. So we'll see how that all goes. I have like stuff that's just piddled around here. I joined, I think it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I joined the Jason Hanscom and Brian, all those guys who do their Sunday build group. I think I talked about it when I was on here last time about trying to work on the carbon for that Mercedes and having it fall apart. So I have several things around here that just need to be like fiddled with while I'm doing this. If I can sort of batch paint, I have several things that like the chassis 3/4 of the way done. I need to paint some like more stuff black or aluminum or something like that. Like, okay, well, I need to paint the exhaust on this and the bombs on that, and so hopefully we can be productive. It'd be very amusing if I could just crank out like 6 in a very short period of time, and then everybody would be like, "Look at him building models!" And then
look at him.
Slack. My whole shtick here is I'm the one on this podcast that doesn't build. Every podcast has that person. And that's my role here. I spend your money by telling you all the new stuff, and then I don't build anything. So we don't want to ruin that delicate balance.
You got to.
I can't tell you the number of YouTube videos you go back and watch. Be like, this is the year that I'm going to build more than 2 models, and then it's been 2 years since I built a model at all. So we shall see. Mr. Joel, in addition to doing a bunch of 3D modeling, you actually do build models yourself. So is there anything you've been working on personally recently?
I do, yeah. A quick hello to everyone that's watching us live there in the chat. I can't blame Mr. Tester for any of my projects, but I do have a couple, not yet at least, but I do have a couple on my bench. So in the Iceman Collections group, we have a Ford group build going on. It ends in August. So I've been wanting to build one of the old Bronco Roadster kits. So I've got that started here, just still working on putting the doors in there. So that's the one that is kind of long-term. The other project that I have is a 1938 Phantom Corsair. You guys may have seen that posted. Here's a prototype of it. So since unfortunately we won't be able to release that one, I figured, well, I'm going to make it a personal project, build it curbside and see if I can get it done. The Desert Scale Classic is here in May, so it's a curbside. I think I can get it done and have it done by then. So those are the 2 projects that I have on my bench right now.
That's awesome. Where's the Corsair come from?
This was a file that we commissioned to see if we could get it released. We were really excited. We jumped the gun. We got the prototype. We had everything done, artwork, everything. We were just waiting for licensing approval so we could start the mass printing. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, so we had to cancel that project.
That's a bummer.
So the maker of the car canceled the project, or?
So the Reno Automotive Museum owns the car and owns the rights to it. And when we first posted the prototype, one of their employees, kind of made a comment and said, you have to reach out to us. And I talked to him briefly. He said, we'd love to carry that in our gift shop. I said, that would be great. Who do I need to get permission from? So there was a bit of back and forth going on. And then finally they came back and said, unfortunately, we have other plans, so we can't give you the permission. I said, okay, it happens.
We're going to rip you off, Joel.
Well,
I'm kidding.
I hope that's not the case, but Hot Wheels did one of these years back, and I believe there was somebody else that had made something extremely similar in old cast resin. I don't know what the licensing looked like for that. I'm sure Hot Wheels took care of that, but for us, it just didn't pan out, which is okay. It happens from time to time. Yeah,
it's all good.
That would have made a cool trophy truck.
Yeah.
It's like the Wild Wild West with files. Like with Andre overseas, nobody's going to chase him for licensing fees or anything like that. But for the most part, Colts is wild, wild west for just about anything. I did see there was, and this isn't model car related, but Lala Boo Boo dolls. They're all the kids all love them. And I guess the company went after My Mini Factory because there were files on their site to make those dolls, and they said nope. So they actually sued them, My Mini Factory.
Yeah.
So I said,
oh. I know that Honda is really tough on files also.
Really? Okay.
Whenever they see, I know a few folks that have a few designers that have had to take down their both engine and body files because Honda was like, you can't do that. And these were folks that were not in the US. So
okay.
I guess it all depends where it's coming from and how far the company's willing to go. There was something similar for the 48 Tucker as well that Red Wheels produces out of Ukraine. The grandsons or great grandsons of the original designer had something to say about that, and I don't know where that ended up, but it happens. It's part of business, and people have the right to, share their grievances and whatnot. And us as small and big businesses kind of have to follow the rules along the way.
Right. I think it's just a matter of time before the big resin pouring companies get hit by that, but hopefully it doesn't.
Interesting.
Yep.
So Joel, tell us a little bit about your business for those that don't know Iceman Collections.
For those of you that don't know Iceman Collections,
all right, so there might be a person out there. Pay attention.
Yeah, there might be.
There's a few. We still run into people that's still aren't fully aware of what we do, who we are. We've been printing for about 7 years, I'd say. We've been building for a long time. We've always been. I've always been. I'm going to say we a whole lot as a company, but I've always been a huge fan of resin. My collection, I'd say probably half of the kits that I have a resin body in one of the kits. And then I have a lot of others that are just sitting in their white boxes waiting for a donor. But I've always been fascinated by the fact that, resin, cast, and now 3D printing, they give you something that's not always easily available. So just even building it out of the box a lot of times helps it stand out. So for me, as an average builder, I need all the help I can get to get my builds to stand out. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons that when the pandemic came around and I got my first printer, I actually started casting parts before I started printing. So I was casting a few things here and there. I got my first printer, and then I started printing masters of some of the smaller pieces that I was making. Some of the engine components, especially like the blocks, the transmissions, the easy stuff to cast, right? And then start posting them on our social media. And then we start getting where can I get that? Can I buy it from you? So then I was like, let's get another printer. And then that's kind of been rinse and repeat from there. I'm very humbled with just all the support that we've gotten along the way. We get ideas, the partnerships that we have with the designers, our customers, and even the folks that support us on social media that don't necessarily buy from us. All those likes, all those shares, all those conversations, ideas. It's fantastic. I mean, I never expected that we'd have this level of support, by running a small business for the hobby that, as you guys, I love it.
You can't go anywhere in it, can you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping, a lot of I still have a day job, so that keeps me tied down the majority of the week. But we want to start traveling a little bit more. We haven't made it to the East Coast yet. We haven't made it to a lot of places, to be honest. We've been to a few shows here, obviously in Phoenix. We've been to one or two in California, but people are always like, why don't you come down? Why don't you come down? The vending part is obviously makes it challenging to carry everything with us.
Sure.
People are like, just bring a small amount, and I'm like, but then it for me it's like it defeats the purpose because you don't see everything. And when we set up here, you guys haven't seen pictures of our vendor table. I mean, it's packed from end to end. Sometimes we have stuff behind it, underneath it, as much as we can get.
Right.
But we do have long-term plans to travel a little bit more, and meet a lot of these great builders, meet all of you guys face to face, because that's been probably the best thing about going to shows is that you get to meet these people that share ideas, that build your stuff, and it's humbling. We love it. Thanks, Chester. We appreciate that.
I recently purchased some stuff from you a few weeks ago, and I was really impressed by the quality of, especially like the packaging. I think you do a great job of like curating a product. I mean, obviously you sell some things that other vendors sell, and you're leveraging some 3D files that are available from multiple sources. But I think you do a great job in particular of packaging it well, kind of making sure like all the parts and pieces there, all the details. I think you've got a nice mix of products that are very complementary, and so I appreciate the thoughtfulness in how you've kind of put your products together.
Thank you. There was some advice that we got early on. They were like, put your logo on everything, and I was like, okay, we can do that. And it takes a little longer, obviously, but it's, to your point, it's paid off.
I was curious, what goes into your selection process for what you decide to carry or not carry?
So there's a mix of ways that we decide to do that. We have a lot of designers that, they design a lot. They're builders. They are also printers. And a lot of times they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, here's something new that I've got. Do you want to carry it? We have other folks that just recently at the end of last year, a couple of people approached us and they were like, hey, we design things for 3D printing. Would you be interested in carrying our parts? And, we have that conversation. It goes back and forth. We test out some of their designs and we've moved forward with a few. And then the other thing is, Colts. I'm on Colts very often, just seeing what's out there, getting ideas, reaching out to designers, see who's willing to partner with us and give us permission. And then the last thing is we're always getting ideas and we always welcome ideas. We can't guarantee all the suggestions that we get, but we have a very long list. Trust me that we lack of things to print and new items to release. There's not a shortage of that. So, although we're bummed out when a project doesn't pan out due to licensing or whatever the case might be, but we're always busy. I think almost every Monday we share something new that we test print and we share. And, depending on the response that we get, we try to gauge how people accept it or not. We've had a few duds along the way as well. But if we get a certain number of people that say we'd buy that, we will put it out. But as I mentioned, sometimes we do get some duds. We'll put it out for a few weeks, a few months. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. We retire it. We'll even put it on sale, retire it, and move on to the next thing. Because in reality, this room is all the space that I have right now for both, as you can see, my collection, inventory. I'm always rearranging stuff, putting more shelves here and there. So if I don't have the space to carry it, that's also a bit limiting. So we go from, very big full kits. We carry the uncertainty kit. That one has been around for a little over 2 years, I believe, already. And then we have a lot of small parts. Those are easier to keep around and find space for them. Right. So it's a balance of what people want. Sometimes it's what I want for a project, and then we'll put it out there. And then others, designers will be like, put this out. We'll try it. And, 50-50 that it's going to make it. But for the most part, we've gotten a pretty solid response from the folks that buy our stuff. So, yeah.
What are you into?
What am I into?
What's your favorite genre or thing?
I will tell you, I started building like in '93. I grew up around the lowrider scene, so I started building lowriders when I first got into the hobby.
Mhm.
Fast forward to nowadays, the 32 Ford is my favorite kit. I probably have a good 25, 30 kits of it, different versions, resin, but that's my favorite. The 30s hot rods, that's what I really like to build, but I try to not get caught up in that box. I like to build a little bit of everything. I think there was before I started printing a whole lot and I was building a lot faster. I did a year where I build a kit from every decade, just so that I could mix it up. They were all like 30-day builds, but I wanted to challenge myself to see if I can get all the decades in 1 year. I was able to do that. Not a lot of, nothing that I can say, oh, these are amazing builds, check it out. But I have pictures of them, and those are just some of the, when I started memories kind of things. But
yeah,
long answer to tell you, the 30s hot rods are probably the genre that I like the best.
that's cool.
I'm curious to know, and you touched on it, a couple things. What's the most popular thing that you've sold, and what are some of the duds that didn't sell?
So our most popular engine, I can tell you that, is the LSX. We cannot keep that one on the shelves every week. We have to restock that one. So that's our most popular engine. Our most popular wheels continue to be Krager wheels. The slots are getting pretty close. Our 5-slot wheels, those are pretty popular as well. And then our BFG tires, those are also, they're great with either of those wheels. Those are our most popular items that we have. And then when we do release some of the bigger kits, what's been pretty popular has been all of these Pro Street, Pro Mod, or Drag cages. They've become pretty popular the last couple of years. So those are always great sellers. But the majority of those, we do limited runs on those just because of the agreement that we come to with the designers.
And those aren't easy to print either, are they? The cages?
The amount of supports that they need is a lot. I've been meaning to do a video on our 5th generation Camaro chassis that we just recently released. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of supports. It takes takes longer than anything else that we offer to remove the supports from that. So yeah, it is a little challenging, I'd say, when it comes to printing that one.
Do you have the family involved in removing supports, or do you do it all yourself?
No. Yeah, the removing supports, it's all me. My wife helps me out a little bit with the admin stuff. She's in the background with handling the finances, the reordering supplies, things like that. But yeah, the duds. Andre released a BMW M3 a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. It was funny because at the time it was a car that I was interested in actually buying for myself in real life. So I was like, I'm gonna print this. I love it. I'm gonna build it. Send it out to get built for artwork. We were really excited. We stocked up like we usually do, ready for the launch. We sold 3. We sold 3 kits. That one hurt because I was so excited. But I think it was a lesson that I learned that, not everything that I'm always excited for is going to be popular with everybody else. So, but that's been our biggest dud, I would say, Sean, when coming to what we've offered, is that kit there.
What was the thing that surprised you that was popular and you're like, oh, this will probably never sell, and then it sold well?
The trophy trucks were one. Those at the time we were when we started printing kits, or full kits, I should say, is when Andre came around, and we were doing 20 kits, and that was it. And Andre has always given anybody the permission to print and sell as much as you want. I don't have a problem with it. So he's been a great partner to have. But we were doing 20 kits. And then after that, we started doing 2-week windows. So we said, however many we can sell in 2 weeks, that's how many we're going to print. But some people will have to wait a little longer to get there. And then recently we've done a little bit different. So with the uncertainty, when we got permission to print that one, the arrangement was for us to continue to sell it and be the only company that was offering that 3D printed kit. So to this day, it's something that we still offer. It still sells quite well. We're very happy with that. But I think
don't you
going
do like
back
an
to
8? Don't you do like an 8 scale one of that too?
we did a 1/16 at first,
Okay,
but
16,
because of
okay.
the amount of time that it was taking to print and the storage space for inventory,
Sure.
we decided, 23, 24 is how many we got out there, and that was it.
Mhm.
The Corvette Summer was one that I was surprised that it sold so quickly and so well, because that was one that we only did 20 kits. We did 20 of the simple version because Andre offers both a extremely detailed option and then one that's less pieces, less parts. We did 20 of each. Those sold pretty quick. But I'm still surprised with the drag chassis that continue to sell extremely well. I wouldn't say that I'm not a fan or that I am, but I've noticed in the past couple of years that they become very popular on people's benches. So that continues to sell. There's a couple of designers that continue to create some of those files, and they've even turned to selling their own designs because of how much demand there is for them. Yeah, we have Mr. Arterake did build one of our uncertainties. Actually, his build is on the box art for our uncertainty.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you've featured some built-ups on your boxes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. At first, I was like, I'm going to put my build. And then, for me, when I finally finish a build and I start taking those close-up pictures, I'm like, I missed that detail. There's enough. And then I'm like, I'm not going to put this on the box art. So I started reaching out to some of the other builders that I saw that, did amazing work. Had them do some box art for us, and it's worked out fairly well.
Awesome.
Chucky beat me out for that Olivisol 3-wheeler.
Yeah,
When
that's right.
You
when you
had
guys
a
did the little
contest. Yeah, you had a contest. There was like 4 of us.
Yeah.
And Chucky beat me out.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was fun. I just thought it's a smaller kit. Let's switch it up. Let's give a few, more guys the opportunity to build it. And that's the way it turned out. I do remember. I appreciate you helping with that.
Oh, of course.
Chester's Model's asking, what is the most complicated thing to print?
The most complicated thing to print is, as Mr. Tester said, it is kind of the chassis, the cages, because I work really hard on the supports that I add on the pieces, right? So the amount of supports, as we were talking about earlier, that goes on any of these cages so that they can print properly, the amount of resin that I throw away is more than what the final piece actually is. And I'll make a video one of these days showing you guys how I remove the supports from that particular piece. But that's probably the most complicated one because of all the bars and the crossbars. So if you miss a couple of supports and the print doesn't continue to build up, everything after that is gone.
And it's funny to me that you can put your scraps on eBay, misprints, people bid them all up. It cracks me up. I'd throw away so much stuff, that I'm like, this is no good. I just throw it away. But I'll just put it on eBay.
We haven't done that in a bit, but yeah, I mean, people would ask us, hey, are you still carrying this kit? Do you still make this? And I'm like, no, but I have, a couple of seconds or thirds in some cases. And people were like, I'll buy them from you. And as people started to share that they were able to buy those pieces from me, I got more and more requests for those failed pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, and I've always liked to be fair, so it's like it's not fair that only certain people get them. So then I was like, let's just do some small lots of everything that we release and fails, and people will buy them. People make, I've seen slot cars, I've seen people do derby car, everything. I mean, you all know that, this community is extremely creative, and so everything that they get, they use, and I'm like, have at it.
That's awesome. I was curious, why don't you just sell stuff with the support still attached? I would think that would save a lot of labor.
Oh, that's a very controversial question, Sean. I think there's all of our engines still come on supports. That's something that it was just a business move we decided to do a while back. And before I decided to do that, and still, to this day, I work really hard on what the supports are going to look like on every single piece, the angle that it prints at. So by the time that I post any test print on Monday, I've already gone through a handful of test prints that end up in the trash, right? So there is, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are some people that just don't like the supports on the parts that they purchase. And I believe, I'm not sure why, but I believe that it may be because there's so many vendors now for 3D printed parts. And the supports is a setting that is different for everybody. So removing supports on parts is not always easy on every part, right? So I work really hard on the engine pieces so that when any of our customers get them, I can tell you that for the most part, 95% of the parts that come on that engine platform can be twisted carefully and pulled off, and you're set to go. The damage or the artifacts that it leaves are very superficial, and they're almost always going to be on a part of the part that you're not going to see.
Yeah,
exactly. So engines are done that way. And then there's other things that are bigger. The uncertainty kit, let's say that. If I were to leave the supports on that, I would need a pretty big box to include everything. So, I try to find a balance of what are some of the pieces that our customers are going to be okay with the supports. And if we are going to leave them on supports, we make sure that any builder, from the people coming into the hobby brand new to the experts, are able to remove the parts without an issue. And the way that I test that is I always have my wife, or when my daughter visits, test out how easy it is to remove the part. And if they can do it without damaging it, I think I'm good to go.
Okay.
I think
all the
labor Joel's just actually getting free labor to get the parts undone.
It's funny when I used to remove all the parts from the supports before we had grown so much. I had to wear gloves because between washing parts and I have sweaty hands, unfortunately. So with them being sweaty and removing parts, it would start cutting into my fingers. My wife says I have delicate skin. And so I had to start buying gloves to remove some, when I was removing parts of the supports. And so that also takes a little bit of time. And there's vendors out there that do it and do a great job. And that's great. We've worked on finding a balance. But first and foremost, we make sure that those supports are not going to become an additional challenge to any customer that's going to build one of our pieces.
No, I like that. That is Aoshima did a very similar thing once, and you feel free to use this because it's like, well, my wife and my daughter can take these parts off. Why can't you? When Aoshima released the Toyota 86 kits with the wide body on them, the Greddy and the other one, people complained, why I have to cut the body off to mount these fenders. And what they did is they got a couple of the female secretaries that worked at the company and had them cut the things off on videos. And the then result was, well, if it's easy enough for our secretaries who don't build models to do this, what's your excuse?
That's pretty close to what's happening here, yeah.
My wife can get that engine off. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, the only thing I wouldn't do is call my wife a secretary, but the rest, I mean, it's like if you can remove it, if she can remove it, then anybody can. And we have one video. It's linked on our website under the prepping our resin parts. It's on our YouTube channel, and there's a couple of folks that have done full build videos of our pieces where it starts from them removing the parts off the supports with their hands, right? So. And I completely understand that might not be for everyone, and they'd rather just get all the pieces ready to sand and go. I get that, and I respect that. But I think the decision that we've made as a business and how hard we've worked to make sure that the end product is acceptable, I think I am happy with where we are as a business and the response that we get, from our customers.
And some of those parts are very small and delicate as well. They get broken in shipping and
yeah, it does happen. And once in a while, USPS sometimes is rough, or maybe I'm a little rough when I'm packing a big order and I try to make it fit into a box. So I get it. And parts break. We're happy to replace anything that breaks when we do it. There's been times when customers are like, I accidentally broke this. Can you sell me a piece? So we work with our customers, on a case-by-case basis. So it's not end-all, be-all if it arrives broken or if you break it. We work with as many people as we can, again, to try and keep it fair.
Mm-hmm. How many machines do you have?
We are working with 6 machines right now.
6. Any brand that you use specifically?
We've used Anycubic since we started.
Okay.
We did try when they Frozen released that Mega 8K, a black metal heavy printer. We had that one for a bit. What ended up, and that one was great. That one was a workhorse. It printed extremely fast. We liked it. But during one of our vacations, we were in the middle of replacing the film on the tray, the FEP, and we left it in the garage. And when we came back, the FEP had torn, I'm assuming from the heat.
Right.
So it leaked. Not that it gets hot here. It was the summer in the garage, so it was at least 125 degrees in there probably. And we left it with resin. So we figured we'll come back. It's never happened to us before. It happened to us that one time. So all the resin leaked in. We even got the LCD lights full of resin. We replaced that. We just couldn't get it back in working order. So we gave up. And we've been extremely happy with, Anycubic. That brand has worked for us fairly well.
So your printers are in your garage in the summertime?
No, they're right here. They're
okay.
Right in the
I was going to say, because
no.
I remember how hot it got in the garage, because my paint booth was in the garage when we lived in Phoenix, and I remember painting in 110, 115 degrees.
It still happens. In the summer, if I go out there to paint, I come back and you get the sweat in those certain sections of your shirt, and yeah, thanks, Art. Yep, we're here to help you out in case that happens. Yeah, it still gets really hot here.
Dean wants to know.
Doing the Pro Street Effing Anything group build again this year. That, Dean, that's not a group build that we did. I believe that one was one that Josh at VCG Resin actually did in their group along with Chris Bell. But that's not one that we were hosting. So what we will be hosting,
right?
Yeah. If I can do a shameless plug, what we will be hosting again this year, I believe this will be our 7th year doing the tournament build-off.
Tournament, right?
Yep, that one is fairly popular as well. It's only open to 32 builders, and we do a bracket style. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hate it, but it's a bracket style type of tournament. So it's not just the prettiest one wins, but it's like March Madness for model cars.
I'm not going to lie, I'm intimidated by that whole tournament. Those people bring their A games for sure.
What is this brackets thing? What does that consist of?
Some of the best builders in the whole country all compete for.
Yeah, we open it up to anybody and everybody, right? We start hyping it up about a month, 4 weeks to 6 weeks before. Couple of days before we open up for entries, we'll post, and it's usually a Saturday or a Sunday, and it opens up, and then people message us saying that they're interested. So we take the first 32 builders, and that's who ends up being part of the tournament. We give them a window of time to build. 8 to 12 weeks is what it's usually been. We always pick a theme in advance. And once the deadline is over, then we do drawings where they're lotteries pretty much, where they all get assigned a spot in the bracket. And that's where it gets a little challenging. That's where it gets a little emotional for some folks, because we have no control over it. Everything's random. So you may have, a really great build with an A+ with an A-, and sometimes it doesn't turn out. The results don't always turn out the way that people hope.
So are people voting against which one they prefer? Is that how it's determined?
That's the way that we've done it in the past. Yeah, last year was the first time we did it on Facebook. It was a little bit of a challenge for me on that one, just because I was new to how I was doing it in Facebook, but I've gotten the hang of it. So we'll be doing it again in Facebook later this year. And then after the first round, instead of just moving everybody, right, because you start to kind of forecast, well, this person is going to win and they're going to face this person. So we shuffle all the winners all over again. So the winners that advance to the second round don't know who they're going to face. So we'll do that for the second round. And then once we get to the semifinals, when we have our top four, I usually get a few judges to actually pick out top three. And then we announce it over a weekend. Friday, we announce our fourth place. Saturday, we'll announce our third place. And then Sunday, we get our first and second.
Awesome.
And then in addition to that, the last thing I'll say about that tournament is I reach out to a lot of vendors, hobby shops, the last couple of years, even designers of 3D printed files. A lot of people own printers now. And so we create these huge prize packages for the top three. I think the last couple of years, they've been valued at anywhere between $400 and $500. And then I do trophies or plaques or, whatever I can think of that year. And again, we always appreciate the support from the sponsors and the builders. But that's kind of how that tournament build-off works. Again, some people love it and some people hate it. But, we've got a really good response. People have fun. And we've been able to showcase some amazing builders. I think our winner from this past year, Gary, I personally had never heard of him before. He had an amazing build and he just swept that one, took it with him. It was great.
Mr. Duff, do you happen to have a picture of that handy? He's like, no. I was hoping he'd be in the background, like searching, like, let me find a picture.
No, I was literally just sitting here thinking, like James said, I caught it on Instagram. I think it was the second year you did it. Mm-hmm. And this would have been before I went to FedEx and started working every weekend and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, well, it was a theme that it was something I like. And I'm like, I should sign up for that. Because what the heck? I could do that, right? And then I missed the sign up deadline because I didn't realize it was, a limited, number of people. And then I started following along with it. And it was like, oh, yeah, that would have been really, really bad idea because, the little dorky idea of a model I had was not going to stand up to the people that are cutting, the doors off of things and the craziness that goes into that. That it's the people that are participating in that, especially now with it being 6-7 years later. I mean, that's some sort of GSL, and Acme kind of NNOS kind of competition there where you're not just going to walk into that and go like, oh yeah, pickup trucks, I can build pickup trucks, I'm going to do a box stock blah blah blah. No, you're not. I mean, you could.
You're not.
No, you're not.
What was the theme from last year?
Oh, let me see if I can remember. Was it 60s and 70s, guys? I see a few folks in the chat that say that they jumped in. It may have been 60s and 70s, I believe. It's been very difficult to just come up with a subject that's not going to give us,
a whole bunch of the same thing, right?
Yeah, 15 Impalas or whatever the case might be. But yeah, I still haven't thought up of anything for this year. But
how about off-road muscle cars?
Yeah, off-road. We might have to think
race cars with cartoon characters on them.
Yeah. Yeah. The last year's theme was 60s and 70s. I just found the.
It was okay. Yeah.
Let me grab this real quick because this is a good example of what he was talking about. Let's see here.
I do remember some of these. There was an impressive group of builds last year on Instagram because I think I was vaguely aware of this as a contest, but I started to actually see the quality of builds. I'm like, what's going on? Like, and you gave away a very impressive pile of aftermarket stuff for the winners.
So there's quite a bit of aftermarket in this with Splash, VCG, and Jeffries, and Detail Junkies, and STS, and everybody else was involved with this, plus Edgar over Scale Riders, and on and on and on.
Yeah, the majority of I think everybody on there is pretty much an aftermarket company of some sort. They've been great, so everybody has donated some of the stuff that they make. This year, actually, in an upcoming issue of Auto Modeler magazine, we'll actually have the top 3, the winners from the tournament that just finished a few months ago. So that one should be coming up pretty soon. We're excited for that, and we hope that Scott will support us and do the same thing every year after. So hopefully.
Very cool. So where do you think the future of the aftermarket for the hobby is going? What do you see? What are the trends you're seeing, and where do you think they're going to go next?
Well, 3D printing came and it took off extremely fast. Every year around Christmas, January comes around and people are like, I got a 3D printer. I got a 3D printer. I think that will continue to advance the hobby, make it easier for people to. I think it's pretty simple now. If you have the time, if you have the space, and so Tessa, you print. So if you're also willing to sacrifice bench time to print and set all that up, I think it's a great tool to have as a builder. But I do also think it's a slightly separate hobby, just slightly different, that it's now attached to the model car community. So I think that 3D printing will continue to evolve. The level of detail that the designers are putting into their files is now amazing. I never thought that we'd be able to see them in builds. Yes, print them, not so much, right? You have dipsticks, spark plugs. Chris Bell recently designed an engine with the internals also in there that VCG is offering. So I'd like to leave it on the designer's hands of what's going to be capable when it comes to that. And then, it challenges us printers to print those small details. And with the evolution of all the printers that are coming, there's a new printer every year from every company, at least one new printer. And I think that will give people the capability, if they choose, right, whether to print it themselves or to support a vendor, to elevate their builds and sometimes make them better. But I do want to be very clear that you don't need 3D printed parts or aftermarket parts, for that matter, to make an amazing build, right? So I'm not biased just because I'm a vendor and use aftermarket parts, but I do think that it makes it a little easier. It has for me as an average builder to add more detail to some of the builds. It just challenges me a little bit more on how I do my painting. But I've never been good with scratch building. And so the 3D printing and still casting, I say that's still pretty popular, lets us build things that the bigger model car companies aren't putting out.
Will never build, yeah, for sure.
And may never, right? There's the amount of designs that are coming out just from Andre alone is faster than what the model car companies are putting out with new kits. So,
right.
You know, I think that the future is going to take a lot of people to help continue to evolve where the hobby is going.
But it will never, in my opinion, 3D printing will never replace, you know, model kits. For instance, Sean wanted me to print one of Andre's Can-Ams, right? So I was printing the chassis out on my Saturn 16K, and I had a fail on it. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll just print one on the Saturn 4 that I have, my other printer. And it was 1.5% bigger on my other printer, which it blew me away because I put them right next to each other and I'm like, what the hell? It's the same file. Yeah. I use the same slicer, you know, it was, but yeah, 2 different printers, 2 different sizes. And it's baffles me. So yeah, the kit manufacturers that will never replace because they can't send out a file and everyone's will be exactly the same.
Right. And not only that, that's a very good point, James, but the settings that we all use is different. Not just with the supports, right? A handful of us could print the same engine or this one part. And the way that we lay out the supports and we angle it, that the end product is going to look different. And sometimes it is size, right? We fat finger a number when we're calculating or whatever the case might be. Or sometimes it does it and you don't even know why. And then you have to do that troubleshooting. So I will say that 3D printers are great, but it does add a level of technology that not everybody is always willing to accept or to tackle. So I think that that's there. You know, in resin casting, I saw Lewis mention there's a place for it. And I absolutely think that, especially for bodies, cast resin is still superior to 3D printing, but it takes more work to create your master, create the molds, everything that's involved compared to 3D printing. Although, just to clear the misconception that some folks have repeated, it's not just download the file and press a button and it prints. Right? Because I've heard that, read that a couple of times, I should say, but they both have their challenges. And I don't think that one is necessarily here to take over and replace the other. They both have a place in the hobby. And I continue to look for cast bodies because I don't have any more space for kits and bodies, but I'm going to continue to buy them.
You've got Greg Wan there in the Phoenix area that does casting. Yeah. So do you work with him sometimes to use his pressure pot and whatnot?
I haven't gone over. I don't have time to do all this stuff anymore. I wish I did. But I'm currently working with him on a project that we'll be releasing later this year. A few projects, actually, that will be cast. So yeah, I visited his workshop actually for the first time, December, January. He was just moving to a new workshop. He just finished. I haven't gone back, but yeah, Greg Wan, he's known as the master caster in some groups. He does amazing work. But yeah, we recently finally connected. He's been inviting me to his shop for a couple of years since I met him, really. And finally I said, all right, I've got some stuff. I'm not going to come empty-handed, so let me show up with a couple of things. And yeah, he'll be working with some stuff.
All right, go ahead.
Filament printer. Yeah, the filament is absolutely stronger. The challenge that is happening right now with those 3D printers compared to resin is that out of the box, for the more common 1/25th, I'd say maybe even up to 1/16th, the details that you get on a filament printer are not going to be the same compared to a resin printer. Now, this is out of the box. filament printers can still be upgraded to have a smaller nozzle, so that you can get something pretty close when it comes to small parts. When it comes to bodies, from my experience, because we have tested out a couple of different brands, it's a couple of years ago, but we've tested out a couple of different brands. We've done the upgrades, we printed bodies, and there's still the layers that a filament printer leaves is still a little bit thicker than bodies that are printed at even, 0.05 millimeters thickness. So can they be printed? Yes. Is it going to take you a little bit more prep, a little bit more elbow grease when it comes to sanding and make them smooth? Absolutely. But it's possible. I have seen a few out there. If you're planning on, getting a filament printer instead, I would recommend that you do that, because you're going to build at a larger scale than 1/25.
Right. And depending on which resin you're using, which liquid resin you're using, you probably use an ABS yourself?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
I thought you did.
I don't.
Okay.
I'll share from my experience, because I don't consider myself an expert globally in 3D printing, but from my experience, there's a couple of factors that are going to decide how strong a part will be, right? I will say I'm not in the habit of bending parts a whole lot and testing how flexible they are,
Right.
but sometimes you do need to, or when you're removing them from the supports. I've been using water washable resin for quite a long time. I've tried many different brands. Sometimes we switch back and forth. I will say with water washable resin, sometimes we get a batch that, like everything that's manufactured, it has a stamp where it came from, when it was done, things like that. I have received batches from certain warehouses that the resin just didn't work the same way that I'm used to.
Right.
So for the most part, I would say about 80% of our parts are printed with water washable resin. And then for some of the parts that we need a little bit more sturdiness, we have a custom mix where we add 8K ABS like resin from, I believe it's a frozen bottle.
Okay.
So I do a mix of that, and then they're a little bit, they don't break as easily. I'll say that.
Okay.
However, all resin, all 3D, all resin is still more fragile than any plastic, right? Doesn't matter what brand you get. There are some that are stronger than others. But the one factor that a lot of people don't talk about that also weakens resin is exposure times. And think of it as you're burning something. If you're cooking, when you're curing parts, you're cooking them. If you overcook them, that's going to make them fragile. And a lot of times it happens with my parts. You can feel that when you remove the parts off the supports, everything around it snaps and flies everywhere. And that's sometimes a sign of it being exposed for too long during the post-curing process. So that's a big factor, is that you can't just put it in your curing machine and let it sit there for hours, because UV light is still damaging to that resin. Yeah. That's why when you're printing, each layer is only for a second or two, or whatever the case might be. Overexposure during printing or during when it's curing is going to affect your part, and not always in the best way.
I go 6 minutes in my cure machine.
Curing? Yep.
Yeah, 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. Flip it over and then do another 4.
Yep.
So
we do anywhere, depending on what machine we're using or how we're curing them, we'll do 15 to 30 minutes per side. But it depends depends on the resin we're using, what machine we're using. We have flashlights, we have big spotlights, we have the handheld ones. So there's a lot of curing that takes place here and there. So, for folks that are like, well, your parts and supports don't get cured. Yeah, well, they do. It's just a lot of tips and tricks that you got to come up with.
Right. I coined the term jelly belly, and you probably know what it is just by hearing it. But I coined that term, jelly belly.
I like that. Yeah, there's sometimes you get that soft and sometimes wet part on the bottom, and you're like, this is not ready to go.
I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
No, say so. This isn't going to be the most ideal way to share this because it's on a web page, because that's what Instagram is on a computer. But Sean asked, so here we go. I dug around long and hard and found that Joel still has these stuck on his Instagram account. So
Oh no.
No, it's nothing bad. It's it's this year's winners for the build off.
Oh yeah.
So first place we had Gary Plenty's. Pardon if I'm pronouncing that last name wrong. Built this 70 Chevelle. Let me see if I can make this full size. If I do that, nope, that's making me full size. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Let's make this full size. There we go. And so let's cycle through the pictures here. Got a nice vinyl roof on there. Open the trunk, rolled the windows down. Like I said, you're not box stock in this competition, folks.
Engine. Whoa.
And so we've got a.
Is that your LSX motor, Joel?
That is one of our engines. Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's gorgeous.
Got a nice 5-point racing harness on the inside here. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not a judge in these, by the way. We never ask folks to buy parts from us or anything like that to participate, or even when I'm the host and I stay out of all voting and all decisions on who the winners are.
Right.
Because we've been accused of that before.
We got an exhaust that's exiting before the rear axle here. Got a Kevlar transmission tunnel, very nice. And then there's a nice prize package attached there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Second place was Jesse Walker with this Revell 66 Suburban. Got a little rust patina thing going on, and who doesn't like a set of BBS rims?
Man.
As a quick note, Jesse has been participating in this tournament since it started, and we always invite our top 3 winners back without them having to fight for a spot. Jesse's placed in the top 3 every single time that he enters. I think he's done first, second, and third somewhere along the way. So he's always been one to watch out for in this tournament.
Wow, look at that.
That's very cool. It's got all the tricks.
And third was Bobby Eisnick. I'm going to go with that, being what that last name is. Again, if I'm mispronouncing that, my apologies. We got a 72 Ford F350 welding rig here that's seems to have lost its suspension. I know it's supposed to be that way. But we've got a patina rust thing going on here. I like this is slammed to the ground. This is can't fit a sheet of paper under the frame kind of build there.
Nice.
Love it.
Another fun fact on these guys, Bobby and his brother have also they're always like, when are you opening up the signups? When are you opening up the signups? Like for days leading up to that day, they'll be asking me, and they always get a spot. This was Bobby's first time placing, but his brother had also been a top 3 winner for a lot of the times that he would enter. But this was the first time that Bobby actually won instead of his brother.
Oh, man. Did I lose you, James?
No, it's just me. I got still full screen on the share window there. We're back. Calm down.
Joel, I was curious, how did you get started in model cars?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I don't even think I have a solid answer for that. Like I said, I grew up in the lowrider scene back in El Paso. I don't know where it must have been a lowrider magazine that they highlighted scale builds. This was when the Lay It Low forums and all they did was lowrider builds back in the day. And so because I liked lowriders at the time, I figured, let's build an Impala, 64 Impala. I remember buying it at Walmart when all Walmarts still carried kits. It was that a kit, blue on the box. Back then you had to do mail order lowrider rims and all the accessories. So I got a few sets. I started building, and I did it for a few years until I graduated, and then life happens. And then fast forward about 15 years, my son turned 12, 13, and I was all like, hey, you want to try model cars? And he was all like, sure, let's try it. So we built, we figured that would give us a little more time together. So when he would come down to visit, we would do that. He built a couple of cars. I have one lifted Hummer that it was the first one that he airbrushed on his own. He added the aftermarket wheels. I still have it. Then he came into high school and he was all like, Dad, girls, video games,
Yeah.
I was all like, all right, I get it. And, at that point, we had a little stash that was already starting to grow, a corner of our little garage back in El Paso. And I was all like, you know what, I'm going to stick with it. And so decided to stick with it. And here we are.
Very cool. Maybe your son will rediscover model cars at some point.
Oh, I don't know. He's a musician now. He has his own recording studio. So I don't know that that's going to come around anymore. He stays pretty busy also, but who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. How about full-size cars? Do you have any, do anything with full-size machinery?
I don't. It's always been a dream of mine to, rebuild an old car, but I don't think I have the knowledge. At this time, I don't have the time, and I probably don't have the patience for that. So nothing exciting. I drive a 2021 GMC and AT4, but that's it.
Nice.
Well, speaking of patience, this is always a question that Sean asks. Well, I'll rip him off for this one. When you're doing your own builds, what's your favorite and then least favorite part of building models?
My favorite part is probably going to be the engine. I try to incorporate some of our pieces, maybe an engine of ours. I've done a little bit of both, do some kit bashing. That's always been fun for me. That's actually one of the ways that I've learned a little bit more about some of the engines that I wasn't familiar with before. So that's helping out. That's my favorite thing to do. My least favorite is always the final assembly.
Me too.
I've had many projects go belly side up at the end because of final assembly. So that's my least favorite. But if I can get over that hump, I'm extremely happy most of the time with what I end up as a finished product. But yeah, I love painting too. But painting has always been a love-hate relationship because it's one thing that I've learned over the years is I always used to open the kit, take it out, paint the body because I always had this vision in my head. And then I've learned now to paint the body almost last because of all the aftermarkets that I like to use, and that just creates a challenge along the way. And I've learned that I've ruined many paint jobs because I've had to make cut something here, shave something off there, and so I've learned to do that. But painting is probably a close second to favorite.
Did you see that face that Tester above you made when you said you paint your bodies last? Mr. Paint the body first.
I always paint. Most of my projects never make it past body paint. If I'm not happy with the body paint, then it just.
I have at least 10 kits that are painted bodies and nothing else because of that same reason. I'm like, this didn't turn out the way I thought. And, instead of stripping it, I'm like, let's just open up another. Like, I have another one up there that I can open.
Yeah. We talked about this before. If it gets painted, it gets finished in my workbench. Like, because I don't paint until kind of really far down. I do all my fab work. I do all my test fitting. It's pretty. For me, it's like there's a lot of anxiety to get to the point where it's painted, and then if the paint turns out pretty good, I'm like, okay, then I get a second win, and that usually accelerates towards a finish. But it's all the effort that gets up to a paint job for me is where I sort of
that's
struggle.
Too much pressure. too much pressure.
I will say that all of the projects that I've done in the last couple of years where I didn't paint the body first, I was able to finish them. So that when I learned that lesson, or I got used to that process, it's worked for me.
Yeah. How about model kit manufacturers and the stuff from the big model manufacturers? What's your favorite kit manufacturer? And
I'll let you finish. Sorry.
And what new kits are you excited about that have come out recently, or you are rumored to be coming out?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite necessarily, but I do like the annual AMT kits from back in the day. Those were always great to have. They are a little bit different than what's released now, in my opinion. I like them. Part of it is because every year they redid their molds or reused part of their molds to create the next year and whatnot. So it created that uniqueness of that kit, right? And that's why a lot of people are like, well, why don't they release some of the older Impalas, or and it's been because of that. So I like AMT for that reason, or from that era, I should say. But I'm never biased against who made the kit, even if people are like, oh, that's a horrible kit. If I'm gonna build it, I will cuss, fuss, kick, jump. I'm gonna land in the same place, so I'm just gonna hopefully it improves my skills along the way. Kits that I'm excited for. I think I was excited for the 32 Ford pickup that came out not too long ago, last year, I believe. That's the one that I was excited for. I picked up a couple of those, blue on the box with the bike motorcycle. So that's the last one that I've been really excited about, I would say. Mobius kits, rumor is they're going to be releasing some Chevy pickups, so I'm excited for that when it comes, if it comes. A lot of us have been
we need a 68 Chevy.
Yeah.
We need a 68 Chevy pickup.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to those. But with Revell releasing the Charger and the Hellcat recently, those are some nice kits as well. I was excited to see that Hellcat finally come out as a kit. We'd been asking for that one way back since clearly Scale was making those trans kits, right? That were going for they were getting big money right before they released the Hellcat. But I'm excited. I was excited to see that one finally come out.
Yeah.
We were able to put you in charge at a model kit manufacturer. What would be the thing that you would spend your tooling money on?
Ooh, that's a hard one to answer. I would make sure that I wouldn't get too excited about something that I wanted, because it may be a dud again. I don't know. I'd probably have to do a little bit of research to see what people want. I know I'm overthinking it and I'm taking all the fun out of it, but I think a lot about numbers. So I'm like, well, what's the result going to be? Is this going to be well accepted? Is it going to sell? Is it not going to sell?
Who cares if it sells? What do you want?
But
yeah, what would you?
If it was just for me, I would really want that 38 Phantom Corsair to be out there as a full kit.
Okay.
That would be a cool one.
Yeah. When this project came up and I started working with the designer to put this together, I was so excited. I was really bummed out that we didn't get the probably the most disappointed I've been on any project. But it just helped me revisit in my head that not everything that I get excited about is going to happen, So, but yeah, I think if we get the licensing and we get a manufacturer to put it out, that would be a nice kit to have. So that I know not everybody's a fan of it. And I saw those comments that people didn't. Not everybody liked it, but it's like all those cars. I think that a lot of the hot rods, a lot of the cars that didn't go big in production. The Tucker's another one that I've heard people say that's an ugly car, and people are like, that's a beautiful car. The uncertainty. There's just a lot of kits that are it's one of those things that not everybody's going to be happy with everything that goes out.
I've been wondering recently, with the success of the 3D printed engines, do you think the model kit manufacturers could do just engine kits at 1/24th or 1/25th scale and have success with those?
I think they could, because plastic is still superior to resin. I think not everything, not every release, right? But I'll give you an example, just the Hellcat engine that's in the newer kit. I looked at that engine. I believe that if that engine were to be sold by itself, they would be pretty popular. People want to do engine swaps. People want to do something different that's out of the box. I would say at least, and I'm saying this as a low number, but I'd say that at least 50% of the builders like to change things up from what comes inside the box, right? So there's a lot of engines that some kits have that would sell, I believe, by themselves successfully. Not all of them. We've all seen that one engine that you take out and does not look like an engine. It's like, I could have crumbled up a paper and make this look better if I threw it in there. But there are some, and it's getting better. And I believe that 3D printing would allow them to do that with their designers and whatnot. They could get there.
I think one of the cool things about 3D printing is that you're freed up from the limitation of injection molding, meaning you don't have to worry about draw and draft anymore. You can create negative spaces. So like, especially for engines, there's often like a lot of detail that gets kind of lost because they're worried about two-part molds that have to come apart. And so, some of the bolt heads and details of engine shapes get kind of genericized, if I could make up a word. Whereas 3D printing, you don't have to worry about that stuff. It doesn't really matter. You can print it in any, so you can add all that extra detail. So I like it when 3D print guys take advantage of that and go ahead and create those negative cavities and spaces in there and add that extra level of detail.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably the best way for them to do it. Somebody just mentioned it was AMT or Revell, and that reminded me they used to do engine parts, right? It was Revell Parts Pack.
Right.
I think that the opportunity for them would open up if they were to do add-on sets for their kits, right? So let's say if they released a Charger before they released a Hellcat, they could have offered the engine and the fenders as an upgrade by themselves to what you already purchased.
Right. The 392,
right? So,
they could have done,
right, yeah. So I think there's an opportunity. I'm not fully informed of the cost of doing that type of injection molding and if it pays off for them in the end, right? But I think multimedia kits are becoming a little more popular here and there, so they could offer a kit that included, some different valve covers that were 3D printed or whatever the case, something that upgrades their plastic kit. So I think the opportunity is there. I don't know all the ins and outs. I may not be fully informed, and maybe it's not cost efficient, but it's there. Or maybe
they can always sell another kit. They can always sell another kit if they just come out with the different version.
Yeah, they did it with the Charger, right? 3 kits. They did the regular, the cop, the police car, and the Hellcat.
Yeah. What would be if you're in charge at a model kit company, what would you do more of and what would you do less of? And if you could have anything, like, what do you wish model kit companies would do they're not doing today, and what would you like them to stop doing?
I don't know how they do the research or how they decide what's going to be put out, but I think I would definitely invest a lot more into market research and what builders really want. We hear it all the time. We read it all the time when a video comes out of all the upcoming releases every month. And, a lot of people say that's the same thing all over again. And some people are like, we love this. So I think a little bit more research is what I would do and say, well, what do you really want? Right. And and again, that's just from kind of experience on some of the things that I've done in the past. And I'm just a small company in the corner of the hobby, but it's worked for me, right, with the limited amount of funds that I have. So I think a little bit more research on listening to the audience more than maybe historical numbers on what sold 20 years ago. You know, the generation is changing a little bit, and we want that, because it's the only way that the hobby is going to continue to grow is if we get some of the younger folks then interested and staying interested, not just build one and, you know, give it up. So that's one of the things that I would do a little bit more of. Less of. That's a hard one. I still support the companies and what they're putting out. I think less of anything would hurt the hobby, right? So even if they're repurposing the molds that they have and just changing the decals, like the Coca-Cola kits, right? I still think it helps. So off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that I would do less of. But I'm sure some of the guys can think of what they'd be like, Joel, stop doing this or do less of that now that you work for X manufacturer. Like, I don't make those decisions, but I'll bring your feedback to the table.
Yeah. And in my question, I was thinking more broadly than just the subject matter, but also like maybe it's the way that they are building, or could be assembly methods of like, for me, one of the things I wish they would do is make clear glass in a slight tinted shade of green, because it's not actually, automotive glass is not really clear. It has a slight tint to it. The thing I wish they would stop doing is those stupid rings they put around wheels that have to fit inside of a tire, and you have to like heat the tire up, in order to deform it. It feels so unnecessary. And I've like about wrecked tires trying to fit these, grinding it off like with a Dremel wheel so it'll fit on there, because you can't fit them. You can't, once you put it on, it's like on forever. It's really hard to get apart, and I always test fit everything. So I don't know, but if I gave it from that perspective, anything coming to mind for you, Joel?
No, I was going to say that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. And probably the reason I hadn't thought of that is because the majority of my builds I'm going to swap the tires. It's probably going to be one of the first things that goes out or stays in the box. But thinking of, when people kit bash, it's hard to take the wheels from one of those kits and use tires from another kit because they just don't wrap or snap into place together. Right. So that's a really good example of do less, companies. Do less of that. Just give us the cylinder. We'll slide it into the tire, and we'll be happy.
What do you think of? Good, but
I say, I know. Can we just get everybody to come to us to a wheel mounting standard? Like even in Japan, where polycaps are a thing, you still have Tamiya and Hasegawa using male fitment, and Aoshima and Fujimi use female fitment. Even that couldn't be agreed on as to which side the peg went into the wheel. But like, it seems like every time you turn around backwards, Revell's really bad for this. It's like, oh, we've invented a completely new way to attach your wheel to the chassis. It's just figure out a way that it works, preferably with polycaps, so you can slide things on and off without it being a congressional investigation about getting your wheels back off your test fit, and just stick with it. Like, you could make the argument that when everybody used wire axles, at least you knew how that all fit. If there was one size wire axle, pretty much every wheel back had the same receptacle. It might be different depths depending on how offset the wheels needed to be. But like, that was the way wheels mounted at one point in time. And then the pin goes in the back of the wheel and sticks into the car. No, the like monogram, it's got a snap tight assembly basically, where the axle sort of got a little splay to it, but don't push too hard. You'll snap your entire axle in half when you're putting the wheels on. And in Revell Germany, the last several releases they've done, it's been like, oh yeah, so your brakes are going to spin freely inside the tires. Why? I know that's how the real car works, but I don't need that to actually function in 1/24 scale. Just pick something and call it a day.
It's
You're literally reinventing the wheel.
They say the same thing about us 3D printing vendors, is that we all have a different wheel back or whatever the case might be. Some folks have done a really good job of creating their own kit with their brakes and all that, and some of us are like, well, it depends on your kit. Like, we can't give you one solution because it's not going to work for the other kits.
Right. I do spend a lot of time trying to engineer how the wheels are going to mount because like you, I swap the wheels. Like, I hardly ever use anything out of the box. And so you pretty much have to learn how to adapt and build your own sort of mounting scheme for wheels.
A little bit of scratch building for that, for sure.
Yeah.
I see. If you guys don't mind, I've seen in the chat, and I've been asked this also about driver figures. We put out a lot of figures for our. Yep, that's one right there. We are on our 8th series of figures. So every series we do 15 to 25 different figures that work great for, dioramas or whatever the case might be. Drivers have always been a request that we get every time we put out our figures. And I will share with you the reason why we don't do drivers. All of the figures that we do are full bodied, right? So they include their legs all the way down to their toes. But the thing that we discovered when I first wanted to start creating driver figures is that the interior of kits are probably the least accurate part of the model kit, right? You have some kits that have 1.5 inches of leg space, and then you have some older kits like Johan that have 1/4 inch of space for the legs. So I've always been a fan of creating things or working with designers that allow us to put out more universal pieces that are going to work with just about any kit.
Right.
Driver figures, and this may be one of those things that because I don't like them, we don't release them. We have one set of driver figures, and they're the pair from Stoner's movies. I'm sure you guys know them. We have driving figures for those, but they're cut off at the knees. We don't like them, but people do like them, and we've released maybe 1 or 2 that way, and they really didn't sell well. And I don't know if it was because they were cut at the knees or because the subject matter wasn't interesting to folks, right? It's hard to tell. But to answer everybody's question, why don't we put out more driving figures? That's the reason, because it's simple for us to work with the designers and give us something from the waist up, but the depth of the leg space, as well as from the top of the seat to the roof of the car, is different. Even if we cut them at the knees, sometimes you're going to have some that are going to have the steering wheel here or down here at the knees. And then the distance from the steering wheels are also not very accurately scaled. So sometimes you have this big steering wheel, and the space between the steering wheel and the seat is not enough for a accurately scaled figure. You'll have some driving like this, and you'll have some like this that don't reach the steering wheel. And so instead of putting out a product that's not universal, we've opted to not do as many driving figures. I mean, we've done some and they fit great. We have a few pictures that we took of a driving figure we did in our 7th series, and it fits great in all the 32 Fords. I did it because I like that car, I told you guys. But I tested it out in multiple kits, and it just doesn't work. They look weird. They don't all, the angle of the seat is not always the same. So you have some that look like they're driving like this, or some that are too laid back. There's just not a universal way to design those. So we've stayed away from investing more time into that, because I think that the amount of time that we already invested in trying to solve that has not paid off, because kit manufacturers don't agree on how much space between the steering wheel and the seat or legroom there should be. And that's the reason that we don't do that. But if you want driver figures I've seen people do this a couple of times. They buy our figures, they cut them, they saw them at the waist, and they cut off the legs, and then you assemble it in whatever position you want. And the ones that I saw, it was two different builders. Neither of them worried too much about how they looked at the waist where they joined the legs, because you don't see that. So it was just kind of patched around the waist, and that was it, right? So it can be done if you guys are creative enough, and I know that you are. You guys and people listening, if you guys are creative enough to shoehorn a huge engine into a small engine bay, which are also not accurately scaled, but don't get me started on that. Or figuring out how to mount the wheels, I'm confident that you guys are creative enough to chop up some of these figures and reposition, redo them into whatever position you want. And I'll give you just another tip here. Our figures that once or twice a year, we also sell lots of 10 that are missing a limb because they were a misprint. Those are amazing for you to cut up, chop up, play Dr. Frankenstein, and create whatever sitting figure you want. But that's just why I don't release sitting figures, because there's not a universal size or scale that actually fits.
Maybe you need to release a kit of just body parts.
Yeah. We have a few folks have told us that, and it's funny. We've seen there are designs out there, because people do like the old He-Man or GI Joe pieces. They're out there and they are movable and posable, but with the resin that I use, that water washable, it's not very welcoming to movable parts.
Right.
So
it'll happen twice, and then it'll break.
Exactly. We've done quite a few tests to try and solve for that, and frankly, we've given up on that. Once in a while, we may put out a sitting figure, get it, try it in a couple of kits, but you'll see what I'm talking about, and it's kind of what we do.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know I've built some kits where the steering wheel was literally resting on the seat.
Yeah.
Like right up against,
Yeah. The AMT 50 Chevy pickup truck. It sits, the steering wheel, if you use the one out of the box, it almost sits on top of the seat. You have maybe a quarter inch that sits away from. So
yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, saying you have companies that have figures, they've designed plastic figures that they know obviously know the dimension of the figure, they designed it, and it still doesn't fit in the things they put it in. I mean, for all of Tamiya's wonderfulness, they've made a bunch of pilot figures that don't fit in the cockpits of the planes that they've included them into. And it's like, well, you know how big this figure is. You designed it. Well, you designed the figure for plane X, and it's like, well, that's a World War II, Navy pilot, so it goes into every World War II Navy project we do from here on out. And it's like, yeah, but unfortunately, not every cockpit's the same size. And Tamiya, is well known for we massage our kits to look good rather than being 100% accurate. So not all of it fits everywhere. So
yeah,
try to get an aftermarket figure to fit in there. You're like you said, you're gonna have to reattach it how it needs to go in order to fit. It's not gonna be.
You have to shave off half of their legs for sure just to make them sit tall enough. But I remember the resin cast figures for like dragsters, where it was like an engine plate. It was only accurate from one side, but if you turn it around, it was just a blob. And that's how you got it to sit into those old dragster kits.
Let me ask you a question that you've never heard before. How come you don't just print glass, Joel?
I wish. I wish it was that easy.
Don't you?
I will say it's possible. It takes a lot of work. If you have the time to polish every window that you print,
both sides.
Both sides. You can get it looking fairly close to clear, pretty acceptable, right? I have never seen a crystal clear piece as thin as the windows that we need for kids. I've seen solid big pieces look crystal clear, but not thin pieces. It's really it's hard.
Good. Thank you. I get that question a lot because I print stuff and they're like, well, why didn't you print the windows? Because you can't. Well, yes, you can. Yeah, you can print them, but they're not.
Oh, you want them
well, just put a coat of clear on it. No, you don't get it. It's not clear.
Yeah, vacuum form is the way to go with those.
Are you doing your own vacuum forming, Joel? I recently picked up the Jeep Cherokee window. I haven't test fitted into my Cherokee pickup. Probably, printed by another resource. Who knows if it'll actually fit or not? But I was impressed by the quality of the vacuum form. I was wondering, are you doing this? Are you jobbing this out to somebody else?
Thank you. No, I do. There's nothing that we outsource other than our files, our designs, but I do the vacuum forming for windows. If it's a full kit, I do windshield and the rear window at the very least. I don't do driver or passenger. I don't do door windows at all unless it's a vent window. But yeah, I do that all here in house, and I try to do the headlight lenses as well, vacuum formed.
Oh, really? Okay. I failed at the vacuum forming. I tried. I really did try, but it's difficult. It's difficult to get a perfect one.
Yeah. And when I first started, somebody, the guy that was helping me put that together, he said, you're going to throw away 3 or 4 for every one. And it's pretty true. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that, or depending on how I created the mold for it, sometimes it doesn't work out. So there's been a few kits where I've had to make a note and say that your windows may be hazy or cloudy, but they can be polished out. In our experience with the Novus 3-step stuff, that works pretty good with polishing that cloudiness out.
Gotcha.
How are you going about making it a buck for your vacuum forms?
We print it, and then we do a lot of sanding and polishing, and then we hit it with a coat of 2K clear, because it does need to be a glossy surface for you to get the best result. So we do we go through, depending on how many kits we're doing, sometimes we'll go through a few bucks. Eventually they are worn out because of the heat. Still resin, still weakens with the heat. But I do have a way of printing them out to create the bucks.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was curious about, because I thought, oh man, once you start using heat with those bucks, they're gonna hope maybe get one good one or not, but then printing another one. But I was wondering if there was, I don't know if maybe you were in the model shop where I used to work at, we would have cast that in something that would we'd make a master there. We'd probably make a urethane casting that would be more hard and more dense. We'd be able to use it over and over again, or we would have just machined it out of high density foam or something like that.
Yeah. When I first started, I was using wooden blocks. It was a wooden block close to the shape, and then a piece of clay to form the curvature of the window, and then it was the window. We've tried a lot of things. We finally came up with a way of printing them so that we could do that. It just, we do a lot of sanding with that. When that happens, we sand up to 4,000 grit before we hit it with a 2K clear most of the time, unless it's like a headlight lenses. We don't hit it with the 2K clear, but the windows we do. But for those of you that do print, if you are trying to print a buck of it, you have to have a large number of supports, so almost a solid frame on the edges,
I just go heavy
Because-
and just go all the way around.
Yeah, especially on the and again, because the supports, you can have a lot of supports in the middle, and with that heat, then they start to get wavy, and your window starts to cave in, and then on the edges they start to droop with the heat after 3 or 4 temps. So a lot of supports is what I would recommend. You know, there's a lot of folks that, and I'm not bashing them in any way, but I do see that they send out the printed windshield. If you just cast it like that or vacuum form it like that, you'll maybe get 2 or 3 before it bends on you, and then you have to work on reshaping it back to its original form, which at this point you don't know anymore what the angle of that is going to be. But
Right.
Clay and wood is a good source for a base on any of those pieces.
And are you printing your own decals too?
We're slowly getting into that. We have a few sets that we do ourselves, but we've worked with Terry at STS for years.
Okay.
So when we're in a hurry or it's something that I still don't know how to do when it comes to graphics or whatever the case might be, that's who I reach out to. But it's one of the newer things that I'm dabbling in. I'm trying to learn how to pull graphics and then print them. So we have a few that we do for ourselves. As a matter of fact, we have a new sponsored decal sheet that we'll be releasing next week. That one was done in-house, so hopefully we get good feedback on that.
Yeah, the
I
chrome
got
one
your-
is really nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. I was like, I got the Jeep decals, and I was really impressed. They're like, oh, the emblems are chrome. That's amazing.
So chrome, yeah, that's I probably won't get to that because I don't have the knowledge or the capacity, the space for one of those printers. But yeah, Terry and his wife do really good work. I've always been a fan of their work, and when he started saying we can do chrome or foil, like I was like, I'm in. It's perfect for scripts.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I didn't know. That's maybe somebody we should try to get on the show. It's, the guy from the people from STS. I've met them and talked to them a couple times at the show.
Yeah, I think
But
that would be good.
talk to them about their process, and so maybe a future podcast.
Let me give you a really odd compliment. I appreciate the fact that you go on vacation. I've seen so many people that run some sort of aftermarket company and they try to just do it constantly and never take breaks from it, even though they have a day job on top of it. The fact that you give yourself the ability to step away for a week from here and there and do whatever else you need to do in your actual real life, I think that speaks to the longevity of what you can do as a small business.
Thank you. Yeah, burnout's a real thing. There's the first quarter of every year I work really hard to kick off the year with big releases, multiple releases. But come after March, come April, I do start feeling that burnout, and I do need to step away because, and maybe it's happened to you guys even with building, and you start feeling that stress or whatever the case might be. And I start making mistakes, and those mistakes it's time that I'm wasting, failed prints, bad designs, bad packing, whatever the case might be. So I do try to step away once a quarter at the very least. And we also don't take any orders during that time. If I'm not in the shop, I'm not going to take your money. And that's a personal preference of mine. And again, not speaking bad of any vendors that do it differently, but just in my experience and the way that I have liked to be treated, if you take my money, should have a product for me pretty soon, right? And a lot of people are okay with waiting. They said, no, it's okay. Let me pre-order. I'll wait however long. I'm just not a fan of holding on to people's monies because I don't know what's going to happen between the time I take the money and when I come back from vacation or whatever the case might be. So it's very rare that we do pre-orders. We'll close the shop. It stays open, but we don't take any orders. We don't accept any money. And then when we come back, very grateful that folks are waiting for us to reopen. The orders come in. I would tell you, I need a vacation from vacation sometimes because I come back I was away from the shop. I'm all caught up, and then there's this just open the floodgates of orders. And thank you, by the way. I'm not complaining, but that first week after vacation keeps me pretty busy. Also having to pack orders and whatnot. So continue to do that. Thank you. But I love the fact that, and thank you for that compliment, James. I love the fact that people respect that. I'm just human. I'm just gonna take a break. I'll be right back.
And the fact that you're still working a 9 to 5 too. That's amazing to me. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. You must be there till bedtime every night.
I'm not. I will say, again, it's that work-life balance that I've worked on the last couple of years. I will say that when the business first started taking off, I was working sun up to sundown, weekends. If I had any extra time, it was here in the shop doing whatever I needed to do. I think there was a year where we released 14 full kits. And that year was exhausting. Yeah, it was exhausting. And it was during the time that I was only doing, 20 at a time, but it was a lot of kits that were going out. And I worked on balancing, the time I spend in the hobby, in the business, with my family, and I've learned to balance that out. So the vacations was a big adjustment also that we did. We still plan them out ahead of time, when commitments come up for family commitments out of town, whatever the case might be.
Right.
And I don't like closing the store, but there's just times when you have to. You
have to.
Can you give us a sneak preview of some new products that might be coming down the pike soon?
No.
I have a long list of things, but I will give you what's coming on Saturday. We've got 3 new body kits that are coming on Saturday. You may have already seen the posts. We've been teasing them for a little bit. Lance, I don't think he's on Instagram, but I believe he's on Facebook. But he designed the Mustang Stalker body kit in 124. So when he did that, we reached out and we were like, hey, we'd be interested in carrying that in our shop or whatever. He said, yeah, let's, we worked out a deal. We then released a 125th version not too long ago. But this Saturday, and I have these conveniently right here, this Saturday, for the same kit. Now, these were designed for the 88 Mustang GT by AMT. White on the box, not a very good kit. So Lance was like, we need to make that horrible kit into something better. That's where the Stalker kit came from. We're also going to have, for that same kit, it's a drifter car body kit.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it comes with the fenders, some skirts, front and rear bumpers. You've got the spoiler there on the trunk. You've got your red tail lights as well as the clear headlights that we're going to be doing. So this is one of them.
Replacing those hideous chrome headlights.
Yes.
That's a win all by itself.
Yeah. It's a good kid. I love what he did with these, and we're very grateful that he decided to work with us. So shout out to him. This is another one also, and this one we are marketing it as an IMSA body kit, but we've received a few messages that this is more of a DTM car here on the cover, anyways. So maybe we'll change the title a bit, but we'll see how it does. And we're hoping that the sponsor decals that we created will work well with this body kit here.
That's cool.
That also for the same kit. So if AMT starts to see a demand on that Mustang GT, we are why. And then this is the other one that I think most people are excited for is the Saline body kit.
Oh, yeah.
Same kit. And so this one is going to be similar with the pieces that it comes with. What we're doing a little bit different with this one is we'll include, not include, I take that back. We'll offer an optional set of wheels. There'll be the Ankai wheels. We just posted the test print of those this morning. So they'll be optional in case you want to buy those separately. The decal sheet for the IMSA will also be separate, but since we're printing them in-house, they should be pretty economical to purchase if you want to go that route. And then the other thing that I want to say for the Saline kit, they're pictured in the box, and we all remember the Saline kit with those 5-spoke wheels. We won't be offering them. However, Ryan and a lot of you guys know Z-Force Model Works, he has a set that he designed last year or the year before last, and I just talked to him, and I convinced him to offer that set of wheels himself, because as many of you know, he's selling wheels, his own designs now, and we've convinced them to release those. So if you're interested in that style of wheels for the Saline kit, he's going to be offering them starting Friday. So great compliment to the body kit that we'll be offering that Lance designed. So those are the 3 pieces. Yep, those are it.
Oh, cool.
Duff there, quick on the trigger. Those are the test prints. So the final product, you see a little bit of a gap there around between the lip and the tire. The final product is going to be a little bit tighter. It'll still leave you space in case you want to spray the entire lip front and back, but that'll help you tighten it up.
Cool.
Very cool.
So that's what we've got. I would have really liked to have said that the Phantom Corsair was also upcoming, and that is not. I'll tell you what, I don't have anything to show you, but I will give you a teaser. You heard it here first. I haven't even mentioned it
Exclusive.
to anybody.
That's what I like.
Chris Bizzo on social media. Many of you have seen his designs. We have struck up a deal with him to allow us to be the exclusive seller of his new 1937 custom Zephyr kit that he just finished. He built those. I love that he builds everything he designs. So he built 2 versions of those, a patina version and then another shiny. It's like candy apple red. You can find them on his social medias, but we're hoping to start working on that one this week, and that'll be our next full kit release. So you heard it here first.
Very cool.
Rock on. Thank you.
Yeah. Neat stuff.
That's what we've got. And we'll continue to do little things here and there. We've got a VW engine, very customized, very clean looking. If you guys know Maddie from MCS Design, he's actually working on that for a personal project that he will be bringing to one of the shows in California. I believe it's the Spirit of Speed. I think one of the themes that Armando Flores is having there is VWs. So he's building that to bring it over. And Maddie's been gracious enough to allow us to offer that in a few months once it's ready. So that one is also coming up, and we'll continue to do bits and pieces just to keep you all entertaining coming back.
Awesome.
Very cool, exciting stuff. And to give where were we able to find these cool items at?
All of these items you can find on our website, icemancollections.com. We encourage you to shop there instead of our eBay store, although we also have an eBay store, but our shipping rates are a little bit more easier to swallow if you just shop directly through our website. So those are the only 2 places where we are available right now. But if you want to stay up to date with a lot of the test prints, the what ifs, the maybes, and discounts and whatnot, yep, Dean is right. He just hit it on the head right there. Get the newsletter. You can go to our site on the homepage, scroll all the way down. There will be a place where you put in your email. We're not going to spam you. We strictly stick to 1 newsletter per week. I'm sorry, I take that back. That would be spam. 1 newsletter per month that comes out on the 1st of every month. We give you a little rundown of what's happening with what we're doing. Sometimes we'll give you teasers of what's coming up next. But the biggest thing there is a monthly discount code. It changes every month, just another way to help you guys save a little bit of money. We're on social media. You can find us on Instagram. Everything that we post on Instagram is posted on Facebook. So you can find us both of those, Iceman Collections on both of those platforms. And then the last thing that we will plug is our rewards program on our website only. It does not work on eBay, but we do have Iceman rewards. And for every dollar that you spend, you get so many points, and you add those up, accumulate them, hold on to them, and then you can redeem them for different discounts that are available. We have anything from $1 off to free shipping to, I believe, 15% off is the highest one that we have by redeeming those. Extremely simple to sign up. Just make sure you're using the same email address every single time, so all those points fall into the same bucket.
Awesome.
That's everything that I've got there of what we've got going on that benefits, I think, a lot of you guys, the rewards program, and shop on the site instead of eBay. But we'll welcome you. We'll open our doors in either of those places for you.
I wasn't aware of the newsletter. I need to sign up for that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you bet.
To say you need to ask that question the way that people on Facebook do, which I've noticed the last couple of days, and I know you've seen these. Where to buy? I love people that are on your Facebook page and they ask you where to buy your own stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It happens. It's. I think that's a rule somewhere in the universe where, people can post all the information and people want to have a conversation with you, and we welcome it. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have ideas, our social media messengers are open. We have a chat system on our website. You can email us or contact us from the website as well. And easy to remember, Iceman Collections at Gmail. We have info@IcemanCollections.com as an email. A lot of different places that you can reach us. Just keep in mind that with our new work-life balance, we're only available between the hours of 8 and 4. Right now it's Pacific time, but we'll get back to you. 99% of the time it's within 24 hours, whether it's an idea, a suggestion, you just want to chat, or if you did have an issue with one of our products, let us know.
I have one final question. I have to ask this. Why are you called the Iceman?
Oh, I knew that was coming. I knew you said you were going to ask me that. I always disappoint people because it's a boring story. It has nothing to do with Top Gun. I was a gamer for a really long time, and my user ID was always Iceman555. So and I've used Iceman for a long time. You guys are gonna laugh, but I used to when we used to be able to download music and burn it onto CDs, and my friends or my family would be like, "Make me this CD or whatever." I would put Iceman Productions on it. And so I've used the Iceman for a really long time. So when we started here and, the model car collection was pretty big, I just put those two together. And that's the boring story of where Iceman Collections came from.
Now we know the rest of the story.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say Steve Harvey, but that's the wrong Harvey. Our last question on the way out the door is always the Opus Magnum build. So it's the Lifetime Achievement Award. So we're going back to your actual model building here outside of your 3D printing. If there's one project or kit or whatever it might be that you would like to accomplish, what would it be?
Oh, man, I think something that I would really like to try and work on would be some of those. And you're asking about a scale project, right?
Right.
It would probably be one of those amazing patterns that lowrider builders are doing on their scale cars. I mean, they look amazing in real life, but to be able to pull that off on a scale car, I've always been interested in trying. I've tried it a few times, but I've always hoped that I can reach that level of masking and back masking and all the tips and tricks that a lot of folks have shared with me. Thank you, by the way. I've never been able to achieve anything like that. The closest that I've come has been a roof on a 53 wagon that I did years ago, and I used lace for that roof. and I was really happy with it. I also did it on a 51 Chevy wagon. And for that one, I used the method of crumpling up plastic while the paint is still wet and pressing it to create that marble look.
Mhm.
I was pretty proud of myself, but nothing like the patterns that the lowrider guys, that those builders are doing. I would really love to learn those techniques, and not just to build those lowriders, but I think there'd be a way to bring it into a lot of other genres of building, to, mini trucks, and we've seen all those wild builds. So that would be what I would really like to accomplish one day, at least once.
That's cool.
Say, go invest in 3/4 of a mile of Tamiya tape.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody in the chat who joined us tonight, we want to say our appreciation for you joining us. Joel, obviously, thank you for agreeing to come on tonight and give us your wisdom in the aftermarket and talk about your own personal building and everything else. We have, in theory, we still have to make sure we confirm everything, which should have a really, really big shoe, as Ed Sullivan would say, next time. Assuming everything shakes out the way it's scheduled, we will have somebody who's actually works in the industry on our next episode. So stay tuned to our socials for the announcements on that. I don't want to say who or what until I have final confirmation from them. They make sure that they have permission from their job to show up. But that one should be a really good one. And yeah, for everybody who joined us, we appreciate it, and we'll see you all on the other side.
Thanks for having me.
Joel.
Bye, everyone. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us. I did ask permission from my wife, so I got the permission I needed to